Now look at verse 17. This is our first devotional note that we get from chapter 1, verse 17. And I saw him, and I fell at his feet as dead. I always think that's interesting. Whenever people in the Bible see the glory of God, it causes them to just faint. Like Isaiah. Do you remember Isaiah said that he was undone? He was like a dead man. Job said the same thing in Job 42. I've seen thee with my eyes, and he was overwhelmed. John, he fell at Christ's feet as if he was dead. But then Jesus, in verse 17, laid his hand on him, his right hand, and said to him, verse 17, do not be afraid. Remember, the most repeated negative prohibition in the Bible is fear not. Here it is again, don't be afraid. And then look what he says to him. I am the first and last. Now, notice what I wrote in my notes. Jesus is the great I am. In Revelation 1:17, note the sequence. John sees him, Jesus lays his hands on him, says not to fear. Then Jesus says, I am. Now, who's he laying his hand on? Who wrote the book of Revelation? What's his name? That's important. That's on all your quizzes and exam and everything. John wrote 5 books of the Bible. And he wrote the Gospel by John, the Revelation of Jesus Christ, and 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, those 5 books. They amount to 1/5 of the whole New Testament. So John is a huge gospel New Testament writer. But notice how much he emphasizes the I ams. I am Alpha and Omega. That's in chapter 1. You see verses 8, verse 11, chapter 21, and chapter 22. I'm the beginning and the end. That's in 1:8. That's in 21:6. That's in 22:13. I am he who is and was and is to come. That's in 1:8. I am the Almighty. I am the first and the last. I am he who lives and was dead. I am alive forevermore. Number 8. I am the root and offspring of David, the bright and morning star. John is emphasizing the I ams in the book of Revelation. But look, and this is what, in my journal, I started thinking about that. When I read verse 17, I thought, wait a minute, John talked about the I ams in the gospel. So I went back and look at this. Jesus revealed himself as the I am 7 times in the gospel by John. Now, if you stop and think about it, look at what Jesus is saying. In John 6:35, I am the bread of life. Why does he tell us that? Because he sustains us. That's one of the secrets of the Christian life. Apart from Jesus is only unsatisfied hunger. Have you ever thought about what hell is going to be like, why it's so bad for the people that reject Christ? It's because in hell you have all the huge desires you had in earthly life, all these hungers, but they're never satisfied. They're unsatisfied. What is the testimony of the rich man in Luke 16 when he talked to Lazarus when he was already in the fire? He wasn't in hell yet. He was in Hades, which is kind of like the entry room to hell. What did he say to Lazarus? He said, just dip your finger in a cup of water and put 1 drip of water on my tongue. What's he telling us? Apart from Christ is only unsatisfied hunger. You know, many people, sadly, many famous people have overdosed on drugs. Just the drummer for, I forget even the name of it, last month, he was only 50 years old, and they were going to play at the Grammys or something, and he overdosed. And they found him in his hotel room with 12 different drugs, substances. He was taking a cocktail of 12 different drugs to get ready, I guess, for his next performance. He needed all those things. His body had been cultivated to be unsatisfied with its hunger, and so he was insatiable, and he needed more and more and more. That's the problem with sin. The problem with sin is you need a greater amount of exposure to sin, and you have a lessening satisfaction from it. If you know anything about an inversion there, finally it's impossible to keep, and that's what happened to the 50-year-old drummer, which I forget his name. His body couldn't tolerate the amount of drugs he needed, to get a thrill because his thrill feeler was declining. And that always happens with sin. We have a declining satisfaction from sin and an increased hunger. So Jesus said, hey, that's your flesh. I'm the bread of life. If you come to me, I'll sustain you. Jesus said, if you eat of me, you'll never hunger, you'll never thirst. He said, I'm the light of the world. When Jesus saves us, he illumines us. But if we don't let him, we only have impenetrable darkness. What is hell going to be like? It's described as the blackness of darkness forever. What is that? The absence of light. Jesus is the light. And if you reject Christ, you'll live forever with endless hunger that is never satisfied and with darkness that never is penetrated. I mean, when we were raising our children, we took them across the United States. We stopped in Kentucky at the Mammoth Caves, one of the largest cave systems in America. Do you know what the park rangers do? They have everybody sit on these benches, and they say, is everybody comfortably seated? Don't move. Hold on to the bench. We're going to give you an experience. And the ranger goes over and hits a switch. And it gets so dark that people start hitting their watches. We went there before we had the nice little cell phone flashlights. People were hitting their watches to make them light up, to make sure they hadn't gone blind, because they felt. In fact, it was so uncomfortable, you could hear people whimpering. They were making noises. They didn't like being in the dark. The kids started being very uncomfortable, and, mama, mama. And the park ranger would quickly turn it back on before everyone started crying. Why? Because we don't like inky black darkness where you can't see anything. That's what hell's like. Jesus said, I'm the door of the sheep. Jesus said, I'm the one that admits you to life. Apart from me, you're only hopelessly excluded. Do you remember when the ark door, Noah's ark, had only one door? It didn't even have a handle on it, because it says that God welcomed them into the ark from inside, and then it says God shut the door, and they couldn't get out until God opened the door. It wasn't like they had their own mechanism to get in and out of the ark, which is really a picture of salvation, that once you're in, God shuts you in. It's not how hard you're holding on. Some people, that's how they think of salvation, that as long as they're holding on tight, that everything will be okay, but then when they feel weak, that they're losing their salvation. The Lord says, no, I'm the door, and I let you in, I admit you to life, but without me, you're on the outside of the ark and the door is shut, and you can't get in. He's a good shepherd. Remember, a shepherd cares for a sheep from its birth till its death. And shepherds are there to make sure it's safely born and in its weakness is safe. And a shepherd makes sure it has the most gentle and loving end of its life. That's what shepherds are about. They provide beginning to ending care. He said, I'm the resurrection, number 6, and life. That's in John 11:25. Jesus provides us life. Apart from him is only endless dying. Now, that's what's going on in our world. People now are trying to extend their lives because they don't like the thought of death. It's so foreign to them, it's so fearful to them that, now Mr. Musk, Tesla guy, he is thinking of a way of downloading his brain to a computer, so his consciousness will never cease to exist. And he's not the first one to think of that. It's very much been thought about. How do we keep from dying? Well, the answer is Jesus provides us life. Number 6, Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and life. I will guide you. Apart from me is only endless hopelessness. Jesus said, I'm the true vine. I will make your life productive and meaningful and purposeful. Apart from me is only continual withering.